Welcome to another edition of Splitting Hairs with Max, Nicky, and Nickon.
Welcome back to Splitting Hairs. We have not done an episode in quite some time.
And we have a new addition to the team, Nickon Hamati. This is sort of a reset on the whole podcast. We thought...
On the whole podcast world. We're resetting the world.
We're resetting the whole podcast world, and we're adding a new host to the Splitting Hairs family, and that is Nickon Hamati.
I'm honored to be welcomed to the family. When was the last time you guys recorded any Splitting Hairs episodes?
2021.
Probably
was the last time.
A little over a year ago.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. Well, let's do it.
And other things happened, and we stopped doing this podcast. But we all decided, hey, it would be fun to do a podcast with Nickon. Let's continue splitting hairs with a new power trio. Just like Green Day. We're the Green Day of podcasts.
Green Day was a trio. Yeah, they are a trio, but I think when they are tour, I think they sometimes add some other things.
Maybe Nirvana. We're the Nirvana of
What are you talking about? That. Nirvana also, Pat Smear at a certain point, they were like, we got to add
all right.
an extra guitarist here so it can,
So the way this is going to work right now for future episodes is the format of the show. We're going to have a moderator. One of us will act as a moderator, and and the other two will act as opposing sides, and we'll pick a topic, and each side is going to debate the topic, and yeah.
And as often happens, tangents may be formed, and we'll wholeheartedly accept those tangents, and that's okay.
I don't know, Nickon, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that sounds about right. I'm excited to get going on this.
Well, let's just, if we have any station business to mention beforehand, let's mention it right now before we get into the topic at hand. I know just one thing that I wanted to mention off top is we haven't seen Nickon in a while, and your hair is looking quite long and
it's getting there.
Great.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Look at this. Look at this.
Let's see, undo. Let's see what happens when you undo it.
Oh, I don't know if you're ready for it, but...
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
That is long.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
We were just listening to a song by this band Extreme, where they do more than words, but they were kind of a hair band in the 80s.
Nice.
And man, you can just totally join them right now.
Yeah. No talent needed, just the hair.
Well, don't sell yourself short, Nickon. Nickon, if audience members, if you don't know, he's a very, very funny comedian, and that requires talent, does it not?
Yeah, I guess so.
And a great cinematographer, director, editor.
Well, I try, yeah. I dabble in all of those things, although it has been a while since I've been on the stage doing stand-up.
We're going to have to rectify that.
You're now on the world stage. Podcasterdom.
There's a Shakespeare play. What is it? He says, all the world's a stage. What's that from? Is that from Hamlet or something? Anybody?
It's above my
anybody.
Recently I counted how many Shakespeare plays I've either watched or read, and it's quite a lot.
Yeah,
it was like 18 or 19.
That's a lot.
I cannot make such claims.
Neither can Max.
Hey, don't speak for me. Neither can I.
Anyway, so let's get to it. So the topic for today is going to be... So I had this thought a couple days ago.
Okay.
I had this thought that I don't think hipsters exist anymore, at least not in the same sense that they did when we were in college or in our early 20s.
Or even younger.
I feel like hipsters or all young people kind of conform to well, not all young people, most young people these days conform to whatever the large media outlets say is popular, and it's kind of young people take pride in enjoying popular music and popular trends and popular fashion, and so there's no outliers these days really that
But
might
isn't
be
that
considered hipsters.
but isn't that doesn't that set the stage for hipsters to emerge? I mean,
You would
I
think.
guess I'm curious if what your sample is, what your sample size is. You know?
Well, maybe maybe we'll discuss that as we get into it, right?
Sure. Sure. Yes. Sorry. So yes, we're not in it yet.
So I'll take the side of my proposal,
Sure.
and I guess Max will. Well, who's Nickon? Are you going to be the moderator for this, or is
I
Max?
can. I can be the moderator. I have some opinions.
I have some opinions myself too.
All right. I can play the role of moderator.
You play the role of moderator, but please,
the gavel.
yes,
Yes.
as also a moderator or as a judge, you have to have the final says on things, and so you can definitely add your opinions.
And
Sure. Yeah.
Look, this is
these
just a loose construct of moderator
the format,
and two people.
The format
Please
is meant
add
to
your
be
opinion.
broken.
We're figuring it out. This is the first one.
Okay, so
Before we get into it,
Yes.
I think it's important to establish. Well, first of all, let's define hipsterdom or what it is to be a hipster.
That's what they say. Define your terms. That in law, you always have to define your terms.
Yeah. So Nicky, you want to take a stab at
sure.
defining what a hipster is?
Well, hipsterdom, or
according to what Nicky thinks, this is an interesting part of the conversation.
Sure.
In what Nicky's mind, what is a hipster?
Hipsterdom or hipsterdome, Mad Max Beyond Hipsterdome. I think
It's a
being
joke
a
I made
hipster
before.
is almost trying to kind of go against the trends, but almost taking pride in enjoying the obscure or obscure art, maybe,
So there's an attitude. There's an attitude behind the sensibilities.
There is, and there's also back in my day, hipsters kind of had different, more unique ways of dressing, although it became more conformed, I guess, under the guise of hipsterdom. Like you would be, if you saw somebody the way they dressed, you were like, oh, that's a hipster. When we were younger, it was people who wore like skinny jeans and
right.
Maybe they wore thick rimmed glasses and
horn-rimmed glasses.
But this is why it's fascinating, because
right.
Who of those people then would have self-identified as a hipster?
Right.
Well, let me just say,
it's interesting to me because that look became popular. That look
right.
became the popular look.
well, you would also see, along, I'd say in mid 2000s, heavier beards became a thing again, and it became a thing.
Right.
And I feel like that was part of the kind of the hipster culture. And then
Or
that
like-
became a really big popular, but here's the thing. That's what happens in the hipster community. They kind of
set the trends.
They kind of set a trend, actually. They kind of, okay, if you really want to get into it, hipsters really come from, I would kind of say, in the Beat generation, actually. I mean, hipsters were like, oh, they're into jazz because that wasn't the mainstream popular music, and they were into like bebop,
not swing music.
that was more complex jazz, that was maybe a little more obscure, but they were like, this is more intellectually thought out, this is cooler, this is hipper, this is the stuff that is not in the mainstream. And they took pride that was not in the mainstream. They were like, we like something that is, that I would say, like, it was almost, it was definitely linked to race too, actually. I mean, like, it was, these hipsters thought oh, mainstream white community doesn't like this. We like what the black community is doing, what they're putting out. And it was, the black community, minorities, they were, the marginalized group. We like what the marginalized group is putting out. And they, anyway, go ahead. What you're telling me?
Well, Nickon said something.
That's actually a great point. So you're saying it's basically like synonymous with beatnik, right? And at some
I think
point,
originally, yeah.
Do you?
I mean, that's what hepcats,
Sure.
A hipster or a hepcat. I guess they didn't have to be part of. They didn't. I mean, originally, I guess it was jazz. Jazz players too would be considered hipsters or hepcats. And it was even. I would say even a little before. Yeah. What do you? Nicky's trying to wave me on to keep going.
Well, a couple questions to maybe Guy. So as the moderator, do either of you remember the first time you heard the word hipster or heard it referenced? Because I do, and it's actually. Can I share mine?
Why don't you go for it? What was the first time you heard the word hipster?
It was actually in an episode of Seinfeld, and I looked it up. A 1993 episode.
Hipster doofus.
And that was before any any version of the modern
sure.
last 20 years of hipster. Like Kramer, I guess if you think about it, was definitely a proto hipster.
Well, I guess he was a hipster in the truest sense of the word, because he did what he wanted.
He didn't follow the trends. He did his own thing. Yes. That's it. Yeah.
Which, so I've somebody said hipster community, right? And I think another component, I almost think that's an oxymoron.
Right. You're right. It is.
That is part of the definition, is like, paving your own road and doing whatever it is that you feel like doing. And like by necessity, not necessarily, doing that through community.
Right. And
it's interesting because
what can I say?
No, I wanted to say something.
Well, let me just say
but actually I wanted to say something. Because
all right, go ahead.
You actually been saying,
Order.
Yeah, moderator, you got to get us in check.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault.
I think that, especially, you notice this, I guess, the deeper you get into high school and / college, that for me, hipsters, it became a thing where they would like things that were not trendy. They would be into exploring music that wasn't played on top 40 radio. It was like, independent artists, going to see independent films and independent filmmakers, and intellectualizing, obscure art, I guess, essentially.
Yes, but I feel like there was an associated pretentiousness about that.
Yes.
It's like, whereas, the way Nickon was looking it up when he originally heard it from Seinfeld, Kramer did not do things in a pretentious way. It was genuine. But I feel like the difference, though, and this is something that even I feel like about in the beatnik culture, maybe they did it there was a pretentiousness about it too. It was like, we're cool because we're into this. It was almost like, in order to be cool, we have to be, we're liking the stuff that's not in the mainstream. And it was like, do you actually identify with this stuff, or do you just doing it because you think it's, because these are the outliers and you want to be a part of that, And that's how it is in high school. You're always, there's a lot of cliques and stuff like that, and there's different groups of people, and I definitely know that, we were friends with a lot of these people that one would consider as hipsters, but I feel like, again, they follow. There was a little bit of a sheep quality to it, which I think is even more. I think to Nicky's point. What? Stop! He keeps doing this to me.
Well, I'm like, man, okay.
I say to Nicky's point, right now, I think it's more more so than ever, I think that.
Well, hold on.
That people
you're
in the
supposed to
hipster
be arguing against me.
I know,
this.
but I will argue against you in just a sec. But this is called splitting hairs. I can agree with you on a broader level, but on a more minute level, I maybe disagree with you. But to Nicky's point, I think in the general sense, hipsters right now are they follow there is a big trend that you see their style of dress, and it's like I see.
Okay,
They all look like they have
I guess,
a certain style that they adhere to in a way.
But I'm hearing a kind of like inconsistency in the argument, because earlier when we were defining the early hipsters of our generation, they were all wearing skinny jeans and
there you go,
shirts.
Nicky. Yes.
So is it possible that what this monolith that we identify as hipsters, by definition, if you're just going to say, hey, all of those people, then you're coming up with a commonality that you're defining them by.
And then you're also proving your argument incorrect, Nicky.
But
that now it's different. But
I think I think it's incorrect to say that all hipsters follow this trend or that trend.
Sure.
I think as with any kind of movement, there are the people who are out there forging the styles.
Yes.
And then there are the people who see that it's cool and then copy it.
Yes.
Well, okay. So it's interesting you say, okay, real quick, before I move on with a counter argument, moderator, I do think maybe for future episodes there should be
Nickon.
There should be some kind of timer on each response. That way somebody's not like keep rambling on and on.
Sure, somebody
and not moving on to essentially a different topic, within their argument.
Right.
But what I want to say
you
is
hear that somebody?
You're talking to yourself right now, Nickon? Is that
no, I'm talking about the only guy in here whose name doesn't start with the letter N.
I don't know who that is. Mine does start with the letter N, but it has an extra line too.
Anyway,
wait,
I'll allow it.
Yes, another line.
It's interesting you say that because yes, back in, for example, the example you gave, Kramer, he is an authentic hipster, and there's no pretension about him, whereas hipsters in our generation, when we were younger, there was a quote unquote hipster community, and it made their almost pretentiousness undeserved because they all were starting to be alike and dressing the same. But there was still something about it that personally drew me to them because they did want to discuss, independent film or independent music artists and things like that. They were
seeking out the alternative.
They were seeking out the alternative. But today, so my argument today that there's no true hipster anymore is that because hipsters or whatever the hipsters don't exist anymore, because everybody, all these young people dress the same now. They have these baggy pants,
But aren't those people by definition not hipsters? If they're
exactly. No, they're not. Yeah. So
yes.
that whoever set these trends now, the way that people dressed, quote unquote hipsters caught on to that, but so did the mainstream. So everybody dresses the same now. All these young people will dress with these, in my opinion, kind of horrific baggy pants, and that basically they're adopting a mid to late 90s look that I despise. I think men's fashion, especially in the mid to late 90s, it's probably the worst time for men's fashion of all time in the history of
that's
America.
interesting.
And I know I'm going off on tangent.
No,
Look, okay, you have something to say,
as
man.
this podcast is known for.
Well, I do want to
tangents are
say,
formed. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen.
I think so. What was it? Yes, Max had his hand up. So
okay,
maybe that's how we go. You got to have your hand up in order.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, I mean, so you're talking about how there's always been a hipster community, at least, in as far as back as we remember hipsters, in our lifetime. And so there's always been people that are kind of seeking out these things, and then people that are always following and seeing that they like that kind of a thing. The reason I think Nicky thinks that maybe it doesn't exist anymore, I do think it somewhat exists. I mean, I go to, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and there is kind of a style of, I mean, I will see it other than Williamsburg, obviously, but in other places. But
I would
there's
argue,
there's a style of dress that guys, I see a lot of those kind of flattened baseball caps, kind of, you know what I'm talking about? And you know what I'm talking about, Nicky?
I do, yeah.
It's kind of flatter looking.
Like a train conductor's kind of hat?
No.
It's like a normal baseball cap.
But it's kind of flattened out a little bit, actually.
It's like worn out, it seems.
Yeah. And I notice, the pants, they're not tight, skinny jeans anymore. They're more kind of relaxed fit kind of pants, you know? Even sometimes it looks like they're pleated even.
You're talking about a men's look, but a lot of them
that's
are
what
wearing,
I'm talking about. That's what I'm
a lot
talking
of them
about.
are wearing straight up Jenko jeans, essentially.
Well, no, that's another type of thing though. But I don't see that necessarily. You see that in men's fashion?
It's more women are doing that.
Yeah,
these
but
days.
okay. I don't see that necessarily though in the hipster community though. But I'm talking about what I see what I perceive as the hipster community. I do see maybe more relaxed fit pants, these hats,
baggy t-shirts.
You'll see mustaches. You'll see mustaches.
Sure.
That's a very common thing. That's been around for a while though. But let me just say, I think the reason though, Nicky,
you've just been saying.
Yeah, but
let me continue to say.
Yeah, let me just
continue.
Let me take a break so I can continue.
What's different about right now than it has been before is that we have people see things in a lot, and we have there's social media. There is a mass explosion of media that we get images and visuals from that people can think, oh, I like this. There's TikTok. That's why things are more.
So you're taking my side on this.
Well, sort of yes and no, but this is where
you're not being a very good opponent.
No, this is where the splitting hairs comes from. I think yes, that.
What is the point we're trying to make? So
go ahead,
Nicky. Were you saying that hipsterdom is dead, or are you saying you no longer appreciate?
I think hipsterdom is dead.
Their aesthetic.
Well, okay, I think hipsterdom is dead.
Okay.
But if it did exist, I don't appreciate their aesthetic anymore.
Well, here's the thing, Nicky. I don't agree with that. I don't think
Let's start with why don't we focus the next 5 minutes on hipsterdom
whether or not it's dead?
Yeah.
Well, I think that I think hipster fashion was at its peak in the late 2000s or early to mid 2010s. I think the skinny jean look, I like it a lot. I like a slim fitting clothes in general. And so it became this thing where the trends started becoming slimmer. I know I'm talking specifically about fashion now.
You know what you sound like? A grumpy old man.
We wore skinny jeans back in my day, and that's the way it was, and we liked it.
I think that we'll look at pictures of the late 2000s, early 2010s to mid 2010s, and we'll think, wow, we looked good then. That was a good way of dressing. I do think that young people will look at pictures of themselves now, and when they do, in the future, they'll say, what was I thinking?
We looked ridiculous.
Because when look, we wore baggy pants in the late 90s too, and I do say that to myself. I say, what was I thinking with that, you know?
Right.
Okay, but here's another thing.
But I do think that, as to Max's point, I do think that hipsterdom doesn't exist anymore because of social media.
Well, that wasn't my complete point.
Because it's so, we see how everybody looks and how everybody thinks now. The trends are easily set, and everybody starts doing that.
But that is exactly so. Well,
go ahead, Nickon.
I will say that I think you. Well, a couple things. Do you have a specific friend or group of friends in mind when you say so? I wonder along the same lines of, you're a grumpy old man. I'm not accusing you of that. I'm saying you sound like it sometimes.
Well, maybe I am. Yeah.
Maybe it's that your hipster friends have grown out of their hipster peak and are now
embracing more. They're getting a little bit older and thinking
maybe they're exhausted. Maybe they're exhausted from like trying to be in the vanguard all the time. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe it's built for someone in their 20s, early 30s. And what we're seeing is people growing out of it.
Well, except that, look, okay, we're all comedians. I see what's going on in the comedy community, and in the specific Brooklyn comedy scene or North Brooklyn scene, with Williamsburg and Bushwick, you'll see a lot more quote unquote alternative comedians. Well, that's a whole other topic.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah,
I don't even think
alternative
comedy exists anymore.
If anything exists anymore. Because to your point of TikTok and everything like that.
I don't think so. Because so what I was saying earlier, young people, even in the alternative scene, they all embrace enjoying pop music today.
No, they
and there's
don't.
I would say that even the sounds of indie music has embraced a pop sound.
That's for another episode.
That's for another episode.
It is interesting, but it's for another episode.
Yes, well, actually, here, can I just, it is maybe for another episode,
sorry,
but I do want to,
maybe it is for another
just
episode.
a little tag on that last point right there. I think part of it, though, is like TikTok and all this other stuff, it is part of the technology. I think because we've advanced so much in music production technology, what once was only that major studios can do.
This is for another topic.
Yeah, it is. But I think the reason you're thinking that, the sounds that once were sounding indie to you, we can do that in our homes now. I mean, we can do the things that were part of mainstream music in our homes now. And so I think it's just indie music has advanced,
Okay.
Anyway,
and also,
in production style.
Someone's influences, there are a lot of people who will cite Michael Jackson as being like avant-garde folks citing, pop stars as their influences.
Well, I think it's just,
I mean, hey, look,
the more you go through time, the more influences there's going to be, and you can just pick and choose. And so you're just
back to the media, the how everything's changing because of TikTok and all that kind of stuff. I still think if we return to our definition of what a hipster is, there's still room within that space for some small percentage of people to constantly try to be bucking the trends, to start to go out there and do something new. And it's only because maybe there's a shorter shelf life of being the only person wearing, silly bell bottoms. Like, I'm bringing bell bottoms back. And
I hate bell bottoms.
So you do that for 5 minutes and then it's all over TikTok and then everybody's doing it. But there's still that spirit in that one person who said, I'm going to start wearing bell bottoms just to show you how ugly I can be.
Wow, I think the moderator is taking on the role of the opposition now.
And then I'll finish that by saying, do either of you disagree or agree? So I can take a neutral stance.
Well, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with Nickon here.
Maybe you're right.
There are people, like, for instance, Mac DeMarco has this kind of look, and I feel like he kind of started that look a little bit in a way, but then it became popular kind of to dress like that, and I mean, his whole band kind of dressed in that kind of a way, and then I started seeing a lot more people dressing like that. And then you're right, though, there's a more democratization of styles now.
Democratization, if you will.
Because of, and it's not just because of.
Thank you.
It's not because of these commercials you'll see on TV that are, or just these fashion companies that are setting trends anymore. It's people can just see TikTok and social, Instagram, and be like, hey, I like that way that person's dressing.
Well, let's return to the hipsters themselves.
No, but it does have to do with hipsters. So I do think hipsterdom still exists personally. There is a community, there is a kind of zeitgeist about it that still exists to me, but I think I do think it's not. It's just one of many different. Hipsterdom is more just a label now than a.
I actually wonder. I mean, I'm kind of maybe that spirit is still there, but
Maybe the spirit,
because of how fragmented everything is.
Yes.
Maybe it's a negligible. Maybe it's not a large enough, let's say, movement.
Thank you. Yes, this is what
to merit a grand label.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yes.
Well, so is everybody agreeing with me now on this?
Do you agree or disagree?
No. Here's the thing. There is, Nicky, as you say though, this is where the splitting hairs parts comes in. I kind of agree with you that yes, because everything's fragmented, it's hard to say something is actually hipster anymore because that's just one of many different choices people can make now. But there is somewhat, as you even just mentioned, Nicky, there is kind of you just even said, oh, there's a Brooklyn scene, and there is a certain zeitgeist about what differentiates that scene from, the other scenes that are out there.
So
there's something to that, right?
There's a friend, a comedian friend of ours. When we first met him, he always dressed with, skinny pants, skinny jeans or whatever, and slim fitting clothes. And the way his style has developed over the past few years, he has embraced wearing more loose fitting pants that are kind of like high waters in a way, and a more current, trendy hipster look, if you will.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And so his fashion sense has evolved with essentially what's become more trendy.
But is he a hipster? And was he ever a hipster?
But that's the thing is,
he kind of has the vibe of
normally
being in the hipster community.
He's more into watching independent film and things like that, and being more into quote unquote alternative comedy, even though that doesn't really exist anymore. And he has a pretentious vibe about him still that might have gone hand in hand with hipsters of our generation. Mm-hmm. But he just seems like another sheep in a way to me, not to, totally criticize this guy. But that's what it seems like now.
Well, I think
even back then, I guess.
I hope you're listening.
Well, they don't know who I'm talking about. But I will say this: when I first got to college, when I was a freshman, I remember I was living in a house with like 20 other people. It was all freshmen through seniors, all living in this house. And I remember this one girl who seemed more mainstream. She said something like, "Ugh, I hate hipsters." She said that before, and I just thought, that's an interesting thing to say. First of all, that she said, "I hate all hipsters." But making that a group of people, hipsters a group of people, that's weird, right? No, I mean, I guess to get to the true definition of a hipster, to call out everybody as being hipsters and saying, "I hate all of them," that must mean that all those hipsters are alike, which makes them not so hipster.
I think I can't believe I'm only saying this now, but I think it's an impossible thing to define by a group even.
Right.
Like it's the same as saying I hate all douchebags, right? First of all, is there a douchebag community? And if so, again, do you think they would label themselves as douchebags?
Right.
And yeah, the same goes for hipsters. I'm not sure that I think we all have our own definition of what a hipster is. And while the styles might be evolving over time, but again, by necessity, because the spirit of hipsterdom is to strive to be outside of,
buck the trends.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's the case, then you, like for the friend you're talking about, if that's the case, then then of course his style is going to be changing because it's going to try and not conform. Although but the difference with what Nicky's trying to say is that his style seems to evolve with with conforming to what the trends are actually. So it's kind of the opposite in a way.
So he might not be a hip, or
he might be too old to be a hipster.
He might not even consider himself it.
He might not fit my definition of a hipster, but maybe one of yours. And certainly, I'd say most hipsters, past or present, never really consider themselves hipsters in the moment of dressing that way.
Sure. It's interesting that we're kind of look.
You didn't raise your hand.
I know, but I'm just on that. We're
moderator. He didn't raise his hand.
Let me just say one thing. We're creating this argument based on.
Man, you're not good at
following the rules. A lot of our argument is based on fashion. I'm just saying that there's a lot more to hipsterdom than just fashion.
Fashion is a proxy. Fashion is a proxy for, and it's the most like identifiable thing
because it's a visual thing. It's a visual thing, but as we said though. People are adopting different styles that are, once were considered hipster styles, but it's in the mainstream. And that doesn't make them a hipster. It's just because their fashion's like that. I mean, again, it's a spirit about it. There's an intellectual component, I think, as well.
I like what Nickon was saying, like, are all douchebags the same, or are all hipsters the same? I agree with that. I hate it when people say, I hate Christmas music. That's like saying you hate all love songs. It's
right.
You can't possibly hate every single Christmas song. They're all different songs. And so, in a way, you got to take each thing on a case by case basis.
Sure.
So, do we take each hipster on a case by case basis?
I hate these hipsters, but not those hipsters. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, okay. So back to Nicky not being a fan of the current aesthetic. When you first started identifying hipsters back in the early aughts, or whenever it was, were you a fan of that aesthetic? Because I remember looking down on it for the longest time. Like I think I said earlier, like it seemed like the theory behind their aesthetic was how can I be as defiantly ugly looking as possible?
I feel like that's the way it is now.
That might be a through line for my definition of hipsterdom.
Well, no,
I don't feel like
what can I get away with? What can I get away with wearing and still put myself out in public and presume to be dateable and all that kind of stuff?
I don't agree with that. I think so. I remember specifically, like, women and girls started wearing really nice dresses in the same way like Joanna Newsom was doing that. That was the first glimpse for me of, this is sort of a hipster fashion look that I'm liking. And they started wearing boots. And then that became the trend, I guess. And so I don't think it was, what's ugly and I can get away with it. I did start noticing that in the mid 2010s, like people were starting to wear these sorry for using the word like so much.
Okay. We'll edit it all out.
I did start noticing, people started wearing these clunky shoes or wearing these oversized like Yankees jackets, and they didn't like baseball at all, but it was a hipster thing to wear, a sports team on their jacket because, it's ironic in a way. That's what it was. It was that. It was
ironic.
Ironic. There was a sense of irony in what they were doing.
Sure.
But that became the thing that they ultimately
forgot about that.
They became the thing that they enjoyed doing. It became not ironic anymore.
I don't think hipsterdom is dead. I think irony it has reached like this toxic. I don't want to say toxic, but I think irony is so ubiquitous that maybe that has something to do with what you're talking about.
Right. Well, I remember when those big clunky shoes started becoming a thing a few years ago. And I remember this person posted something on
about,
Instagram
like,
saying,
Doc
"I'm going to get
Martens?
these shoes," and
no,
it's kind of
Doc Martens have always kind of been a
these they almost look like orthopedic shoes, that like Fila would start making these kinds of really thick things.
Okay.
And I remember seeing somebody post about, I think I'm going to get these shoes, but almost as a joke.
Right.
But then they actually did start wearing those
And spending
in a
a lot of, I think those
non-jocular
are
manner.
expensive too.
It wasn't
right?
ironic
Here's
anymore.
also another good example is Crocs becoming big again.
Sure.
And I think that was done in an ironic way at first, but then people were like, oh, actually, they started doing it as an actual, just, their regular aesthetic that they would like to wear.
I don't see the Crocs thing. I don't know. That might be separate too, because Crocs are very practical. And I think, again, it might come.
Well, so are Doc Martens, actually.
It might come back to
practicality.
let me see if I can get away with wearing Crocs in public.
I know, but
right.
And which is not ironic. It's like I'm trying to be bold here. I'm trying to say I don't give a shit what anybody. Can we swear? Oh, let's try not to swear. I don't care what anybody thinks.
You can if you want.
It's better not to.
I like that. I like that. Nickon.
Moderator, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody thinks about me because I'm wearing Crocs and I'm
Okay.
at this nightclub wearing Crocs. And you can try to stop me, but I'm a hipster.
So,
not.
I think there's two things about hipsters. There's two things.
Ooh, I've got a whole separate
There's
issue.
two facets here, actually. One, I think that used to be a marker of the hipsterdom, I guess, is irony. But I think another thing, as you said, is basically being a true romantic in a way, in that you, like romanticism, not romantic like, like romantic music and stuff like that, but I mean like as a kind of just not caring, not caring what the audience thinks, not caring what everybody thinks. I'm going to do what I do. If nobody likes it, that's their fault. I'm going to do what I do.
I'm starting to realize we could have spent the first 40 minutes just going through our own definitions of what is and isn't a hipster, and actually, can we all agree at this point that we'll never reach consensus on one definition of what a hipster is?
Well, I think
It's
there's a
interesting
lot of
because
facets to what a hipster
Nickon,
is.
I do
actually,
think
or what it
that-
could be. Actually,
I do think that each one of us has had good points as to what a hipster is or what defines a hipster. I actually, I remember saying this when I was younger, that I think that Max and I are actually true hipsters in the truest sense of the word, because we do what we think is good for us and not what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, so you're just taking the opportunity to call out hipsters far and wide that
Just to
they've
say,
lost
hey,
the
I'm a
script.
true hipster. Yeah.
So maybe
You guys have
hipsters
lost
do
the script.
exist in the form of Max and Nicky.
Well, I
And
guess
that's it.
Here's
the
the
last
thing.
hipsters.
That's not to say though that we
Yeah,
don't.
the last hit. That's a good title for a movie. The Last Hipsters, or The Last of the Hipsters, or
A
something.
hipster's
here's the
last
thing,
hurrah.
Here's
Hipsters
what I want to
last
say
hurrah.
though. Not to say though that we won't look at. There are some fashion things that might be out there that, or at least we used to look at that and think, I like that. I want to adopt that as part of my fashion, how I exhibit my fashion. But here's the thing, though, Nicky.
It's funny that fashion has really gotten. We've talked so much about fashion.
You didn't
now
raise your hand. You interrupted.
because they go hand in hand. Yeah, with
Oh, I just do want to say though. Here's the thing, Nicky. A big part. You were talking about hipsters wearing, because at a certain point, hipsters were starting to wear slimmer things, and Nicky, you saw a guy wear a pea coat, and that was like a big. You're like, oh, I want to get a pea coat. That looks cool to me, and it looks warm, and and it was practical, but it also looked good. And this guy was wearing a scarf, and I remember a guy that we knew in high school was wearing that stuff, and we're like, oh, he actually looks really good. But
this guy was a hipster
he was a hipster. But I will say it was,
in our sense of it.
it predated
Was he
something
a hipster
that
doofus though?
no, he
No,
wasn't.
we went to high school with Kramer. No, Michael Richards.
Here's the thing, though. Another thing that happened in the late 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s, was Mad Men came out. And that had a big influence on not just the main, not on, it had a big influence on everybody, including hipsters, I think. And I know that guy was wearing slimmer stuff predating Mad Men, but I think I think a lot of people adopted that, not just the mainstream, but I think the hipster community too, was just slimmer thing, like
as far as men's fashion goes.
As far as men's fashion went, and women's fashion too, actually.
Well, sure,
women's fashion, like red hair became a really big thing at that time. I remember.
Well, 60s fashion became a thing. Even like an Audrey Hepburn casual look became a thing. You know?
I don't want us to. I mean, we're going into just talking about fashion now.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about, Nickon, was that, okay, we're using fashion as a proxy, and it was just like, okay, well, there's more to this.
Well,
than
that's
just
why
fashion,
I wanted to say the music part of it, and that has something to do with it, is that, you know, music that hipsters listened to, it was independent. It wasn't what the mainstream listened to, but I think that if hipsters existed today, they would be listening to mainstream music.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I still think they exist. You just snuck in the if they exist. But so are you suggesting that there's nobody listening to music that isn't mainstream?
Yeah, I disagree with that. There's college radio stations that are putting out. Or is it just
that your ex-hipster friends have decided they like Taylor Swift?
No. I'm talking about younger people. I think that. Okay, I was listening to this podcast recently that was on.
It could be that you're not young
NPR,
not some kind of tuned into the younger community as you once were.
I think I was listening to This American Life or something that was on NPR. And NPR, you might associate it back then as something that hipsters would listen to, not the mainstream. And
even though that is a national,
there was somebody on there that had mentioned that their favorite artists, they just named off a bunch of like Ariana Grande and just and whatever, Taylor Swift, and just a bunch of current pop artists. And I thought, this is a very uncool thing for them to admit to liking on NPR.
That's interesting that you said uncool.
Which on NPR, which is, I would associate with a hipster listening to NPR more than a mainstream.
To be clear, a hipster, someone from our generation being a hipster, because my parents listen to NPR since I was so.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't agree.
And they are not hipsters.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree.
They're not
with
listening
that
to top 40 radio, though. That's what I mean, you know?
Right.
I think,
they might listen to, you know, if you grew up in the Bay Area, KLX, the UC Berkeley
college radio stations.
College radio stations.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But sometimes, Nicky, sometimes it has to do with your geography also. I mean, sometimes people just don't have those stations accessible to them, you know? I mean...
That's true. I will say, I mean, I thought you were, even on a more micro geographic level, I have a handful of friends who live in Greenpoint, so I spend a lot of time up there. And I will tell you, hipsterdom is alive and well.
That's what I'm trying to say. I agree with that.
Okay, so then what?
I agree, Nickon.
Okay, if hipsterdom is alive and well, what are they? Okay.
They're going to
you're talking
vintage
about
stores, just the way, you know, our vintage hipsters, are known for doing. They're there's, you know, watching obscure movies at weird, creepy movie theaters.
Okay, but you're talking about geography. Okay, when people move to Los Angeles, young people who you might consider hipsters, I always ask them, "Oh, what part of town did you move to?" 99% of the time, they'll say Silver Lake.
Sure.
And I'm like,
they'll say Los Feliz, actually.
Or Los Feliz. Los Feliz to Silver Lake. And that has become such a trend that they're not truly hipsters anymore. They're just following the trend of young people.
As with Williamsburg, as with
Williamsburg.
10, 15 years ago, that's where the hipsters lived. But they made it so cool, so desirable, that all the bankers flocked over there pushed all of the artists out. And that's a whole different thing too.
Well,
that's
here's
kind
the
of
thing. Yes, I agree with Nickon. Here, I think,
and we should wrap it up in the next couple minutes.
This is the point I think Nicky's trying to make, is that
statements.
Nicky is saying that things become what the hipsters hoped. I mean, the hipster kind of idea of being, you know, the minority of liking something and, liking that they are the minority and only liking something. He feels like that doesn't exist because either they like mainstream stuff or that it's hard to, because of social media, it's hard to like something that is truly is not going to be exposed to the rest of the world because everything is exposed now. To Nikon's point though, I think part of it is, yes, Nicky, I think you're not realizing that hipsterdom does exist. It's just that maybe you're not seeing it as it eventually becomes bigger. And then you start to notice it more on a mainstream level. And then it doesn't become hipster anymore. It becomes mainstream. But it always exists. There's still people seeking out, these alternative things, I think. And
and I think that as far as a taste in music or films and everything like that, I do think it's a mischaracterization to say, oh, they're just looking for something that so they can say they're not mainstream. I do think it's a sensibility. I do think
yes, I agree.
Like you're listening to different stuff because you genuinely don't like the mainstream stuff.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Yes, that's true.
So maybe
that's true, Nickon. But I also think
Max,
you
already had your closing argument.
There is a pretentiousness.
Sure,
that comes with that.
Well, because you're proud of how much work you put into like discovering this band or whatever it is, right?
Okay, so I would say my closing thing would be, okay, remember, how the thing, it's kind of an expression, I guess, sort of that your favorite obscure thing becomes something that you don't like anymore when it becomes too popular.
Yes, The Big Lebowski was that for me. I still love it, but
Right.
Anyway.
Well, that's an example.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Joanna Newsom was a kind of a thing. That was a thing for me for a while where I was like, oh man, she's the best current artist out there. And then everybody started liking it. And I was like, yeah, but you guys didn't like her to start off with. I mean, I guess that's the way it was with the Beatles. The
Beatles,
Liverpudlians, they all loved the Beatles, but then when they became popular throughout the world, it became like a thing, like they're not ours anymore.
A person from Liverpool is a Liverpudlian.
That's right. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Or a Scouser is what they kind of call them.
So I would say that okay,
like
maybe you guys are right. Hipsters do exist, but there's no true sense of it. And maybe this is good because that means they truly exist, but there's no hipster community to look to anymore.
Right.
It's just individuals that might be truly hipsters now.
Can I just mention? And the few hipsters in your life, you're saying need to update their fashion. There's a side part of that.
Well, can I just say something actually?
Max, please.
What have become trendy now are Reeboks, C85s, like these classic,
White
mid '80s white Reeboks, and my brother and I have worn those since. Well, I've worn them since 2008.
Yeah,
since 2008.
I can attest to that. Yeah, I've seen you wear them.
And I mean, there have been times when I've switched out.
You better wrap up.
Oh, I'll just wrap up. Yeah, there have been times.
Just reiterating that Max and Nicky are the last surviving.
Yeah, well, that I've worn Converse and kind of dress shoes at other times too. But I've always had a pair of those Reeboks since 2008. My older brother a little bit before me. But now, I guess around maybe 2016, they started to catch on a little bit. Part of it was Reebok was releasing these vintage quality Reeboks. Anyway, they're really big in the quote unquote hipster community, but also beyond that too, in the mainstream too. And I do feel a sense of like, man, it's not mine anymore. I do feel like that.
Yeah. That's universal. That happens. Big Lebowski. All right. Well, as the moderator, I feel like I should sum up the things. I think we can all agree on, which is that I don't think there are many true hipsters that would go out of their way to self-identify as like, I'm a hipster. Like that's how I look at myself in the world.
Right. No, I don't think actually anyone does that. Actually,
I think some people. I think if you're self-aware enough and you see like, oh, I've been going back to the bell bottoms.
You can
wearing
be
bell bottoms for the last week and haven't changed them. I guess I'm a hipster. So that I think we can all agree on. I think we can all agree on that we'll never agree on one definition of a hipster. But I do think that it is a state of mind. And that state of mind is something having to do with seeking out things that are different, and we can leave alone the motivation behind that, whether it's to seem cool or whether it's
or if it's just being inundated with the same stuff.
Yeah, and being sick of it, wanting something new. And I think the most compelling little piece of this was because of the fragmentation of society and media and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and how quickly things catch fire. It's impossible to be on the vanguard for more than 5 minutes before everybody on TikTok picks it up, or it doesn't get picked up and you just fall into obscurity.
But also, just to tag on
Max,
that,
Max.
But also the mainstream.
That would have been a great way to end.
I know, but I'm just going to say the mainstream is no longer there's, as you said, there's fragmentation. So the mainstream also is not the only mainstream, as it were, I guess.
Right. There is no, there's still your top 40 and all that, but there's no true, there's never going to be another Seinfeld. We all,
there's never going to be record sales that are that, monstrous anymore,
Right.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Splitting Hairs with Max, Nicky, and Nickon, and we'll see you next time.
And on the question of who won.
Oh, who won?
I'd say we all won.
And then maybe why don't you give it a final, this court is adjourned.
Oh, yes. All right. Let's see. I need something. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Perfect. So we all won. This court is adjourned.
You want to do that closer to your mic on the thing? I didn't quite hear that. Well,
no, nothing.
Anyway.
It must be like it's reading it as an ambient sound. We're keeping this. This is going in the episode.
Anyway, keep tuning in, folks.